Part 2. The Nameless Summit. The first night after the cave, they slept poorly. Sleep would not stay together. It broke into short fragments, as if someone kept touching their consciousness and letting go. It seemed that the blue sphere was glowing under their eyelids, not like a picture, like a trace. The young woman woke up suddenly, without a sound, without movement. The feeling was strange, as if someone was standing nearby, not by the body, not above the bed, by the thought. She lay motionless, even breathed quieter, as if afraid to scare that feeling away. She opened her eyes. The room was dark and quiet. Familiar silence, familiar darkness. But the feeling did not disappear at once, as if someone had just stepped away, took a step back, and stopped where the eye could not reach. It held for a few seconds longer. Then it weakened. Then it became almost imperceptible. But it was not empty. The young man woke up from something else. He dreamed of the compass, the same one, old, heavy. In the dream it lay in his palm, cold, like it was not his. The needle turned, slowly, evenly. It drew a circle, without a beginning, without an end. And in this circle there was no exit. In the dream he did not think. He did not analyze. He knew. If the needle stopped, they would never return. He woke up sharply. His heart beat dully, as if the sound came through thick cloth. He lay and looked into the darkness. He waited until reality became solid again. They hardly talked about the dreams, but they both knew. It was not coincidence. They agreed to tell no one, not out of fear, out of caution. What is said aloud becomes a story, and stories change meaning. They simplify, they smooth what is sharp, and they needed precision. What happened in the cave was fragile, like thin glass. It could be saved, or broken with one word. They began to prepare for the meeting, not like for a journey, like for a conversation. No extra movements, no rush, warm things, flashlights, a supply of water. The young man held a notebook in his hands for a long time, then put it in the backpack with a pen. He did not know why. He simply wanted to have something ordinary. The young woman took a small plaid. It smelled of home. That smell held better than any words. The sixth night stretched longer than the others. Time seemed to stretch. Each minute was felt separately, as if there were empty gaps between them. She looked at the watch. The numbers changed, but there was no sense of movement, as if someone had turned off the very idea of haste. On the seventh night they set out, to the nameless mountain. The climb was hard. Snow lay in thin layers. Their steps slipped. The wind cut their faces, not sharply, persistently. The sky seemed lower than usual, as if it pressed, as if it was testing. Around them it was too quiet. No birds, no insects. Even their own steps sounded muffled, as if someone absorbed them. At midnight they reached the summit. There was nothing there. Stones, darkness, wind. The mountain was bare, honest, without a name. They stood side by side, not touching, but close. They breathed slowly, consciously. They waited. A minute passed, then another. The night was silent, and in that silence, something began to change. And in that silence, the compass in the young man's pocket warmed up, not sharply, slowly, as if someone took it in his palm. He shuddered. He took out the compass. The needle did not point north. It did not sway. It did not spin. It pointed forward, into the air, into a point where the darkness was thicker than the rest of the night. In that point, a light appeared. Weak, blue, like a distant spark you see in the mist and do not know if it is real. The light slowly grew. It gathered. It took shape. The air around became denser. Cold disappeared, as if it was taken away with the wind. In front of them appeared a blue sphere, smaller than in the cave, even, stable, as if it was made especially for that summit. When the sphere fixed itself, the wind disappeared completely. It did not subside. It simply disappeared. The silence became deeper. It pressed on their ears, but it did not frighten. In that silence appeared a presence. "We have come. You have come. Now let us talk." These were not words. It was meaning, clear, without tone. The contact was different than in the cave. There was a test there. There was fear. Here, there was choice. The beings began first. The space around changed, not physically, inside. In front of them opened another world, a sky with two suns, sand that glows at night, cities under transparent domes, no sharp corners, no shadows where one could hide. They had no fixed bodies. Their shape changed. When they communicated, it became clearer. When they listened, it dissolved. They did not sleep. They entered a state of calm, their minds synchronized with a common field, as if all listened to one melody, and no one dropped out of rhythm. Then another image appeared. Emptiness, not death, not destruction, silence without response. A state when consciousness remains alone, without feedback, without a field. Their planet was losing that field. Slowly. Irreversibly. So they were seeking contact. Then came the turn of humans. The young man showed his world. Morning, an alarm clock, tiredness before the day begins, roads, lines, a rush that never ends. The beings did not evaluate. They watched. They remembered. The young woman showed something else. Embraces, tears from music, conversations that heal loneliness. They lingered on this image, longer than on others, language through the body, warmth without words. And then the main thing sounded. You have warmth amid fear. We want to learn this. The sphere glowed brighter, and in the light appeared a shadow, something else, cold, alien. The presence felt like a fine thread of cold. It touched the thought and at once stepped back. Not all of them wanted contact. Some considered humans a threat. The beings held that force at a distance, but it was near. It was a test. The young woman imagined home, warmth, light in the kitchen, and she let the aliens in there without fear, without tension. The cold thread weakened. Then it disappeared. The contact stabilized. Before saying farewell, a condition appeared. The contact would continue. The next meeting would be by water, where a stone sings under the waves. In 30 days. Bring no one. The sphere began to fade, not sharply, like a window slowly closing. The light disappeared, the wind returned. The night became ordinary again. They stood for a long time in silence. Below the lights of the city shone. The world lived on. And they already knew. That was not the only meeting, and not all who look from the darkness want to speak. They did not go down at once, as if the mountain still held them, as if something asked them not to move. The wind returned, ordinary, cold, but the feeling remained, not a presence, a trace. The young man took the first step. The snow crunched softly. The sound was normal. It alerted him. He looked back. He looked at the young woman. She nodded. Slowly, they began to descend, step by step, without talking. The night no longer seemed hostile, but it was not neutral either. It was watching. Somewhere on the slope the young man stopped, suddenly. The compass in his hand warmed again. Slightly. He looked. The needle was even, but not perfectly. It trembled. It did not spin. It did not leave its place. It trembled as if something nearby prevented it from stopping. He hid the compass. He said nothing. But the young woman felt it. "What?" she whispered. He shook his head. "Not now." They reached the edge of the forest by morning. The sky began to lighten, slowly, as if it did not want to return. The forest looked different, the same trees, the same paths, but the space between them was denser, as if the air had become heavier. young woman stopped, listened. "Do you hear?" He froze. At first nothing. Then a barely audible sound, like a stone touches water, very far away. "There is no water here," he whispered. The sound disappeared. They walked on. With each minute the world returned to its usual features, birds, a light rustle of wind, but something did not return, the sense of time. It was broken. The young man's watch showed the correct time, his phone as well. But inside, time went differently. A minute could stretch, or it could disappear. The young woman stopped by a tree. She put her hand on the bark, and she froze. "It remembers," she said softly. "What?" "Us." He wanted to smile, to say it was tiredness, but the bark under her hand was warm, not from the sun. The sun was not yet there. They reached the first hut closer to noon. Smoke from the chimney, human tracks. The world was in place, but they were not. The people they met seemed distant. Voices sounded normal. Words were understandable, but the meaning came with a delay, as if through a thick wall. The young woman caught herself looking through people several times, not on purpose, as if her focus had shifted a bit. In the evening, they stayed in a room for the night. Light, beds, warmth, safe, and yet they did not sleep. Toward night, the young man took out the notebook. He looked at the blank pages for a long time. Then he wrote one word, water. He closed the notebook. "They did not tell us everything," the young woman said softly. He nodded. "And the shadow," she added. It did not go away. The room was quiet. Too quiet. And then they both felt it at the same time. Not a thought, not a sound. A shift. As if someone for a moment looked at them from another angle, not from the summit, not from the cave, from below, from depth. The young woman whispered, "Water does not wait 30 days." The young man slowly looked at the compass. The needle trembled again, and now it did not point north. It pointed down.